Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today we're going to be discussing the second round of the X2O Trophy, and with me here to do that is Issam.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Good to have you back. We had 3 podcasts that were different than anything we've done for pretty much the last 2 years, so it's back to normal. I would also say back to normal cyclocross conditions after our adventures in Spain last week. Some hot weather there. Here the winter is really starting to set in. We had the first very cold days this week. We needed to get the winter jackets out of the closet. The sky has been grey for pretty much the entire week. In the Netherlands, the speed skating season has started. And even there, everywhere I look, Issam, X2O, they are sponsoring a team and the events now. Everybody was wearing those hats. And now we're also back in Lokeren, a race that has been absent on the calendar for 1 year. Before that, it hosted the Belgian Championships, was in the Exact series before that. Now in the X2O Trophy. Would you say addition for this series, or could it have been missed?
Well, I mean, for me, it was of course, we already kind of had a preview from what we saw at the Belgium Championships, but I feel that on a course like this, you really get, the riders somewhat struggle with it, and I think for obvious reasons, it's a course that I personally do not really like. I don't know if you're going to find people that will like it. Probably will, because everybody has their own taste, but it's too much bunched up. It's a lot of single track. It's very difficult to make a difference. It's also very difficult to stay out of any mistakes, especially what we had today. And I don't know. I mean, I'm all for a tricky course, but I just feel that this is a bit too much. It's a bit too twisty. It's a bit too narrowed down. Sometimes you look at it and you're like, does this have anything to do with cyclocross in a way? Maybe that is just, it is an opinion, and at the end there are going to be people that disagree with it, but I feel that I don't think that this is an addition particularly for the X2O Trophy. I think actually that it kind of showcases where they are at the moment, and that they somewhat take whatever comes along their way.
It's certainly not my favorite course either. It's very limited. Like, it's super compact, and I get the idea behind putting all those loops around the hill because that helps for spectators, and you could see it was quite condensed there. But you need to wonder when you build this course, like, with what function do I put these features here? Because now it was a lot of corners, a lot of up and down, but most of the corners actually didn't really cause any difficulty. The only thing it did was speed limit the riders, and you could see that despite the mud and despite the corners, it was very hard to get a gap. I was also thinking it was quite interesting that there was no big televised race on Saturday, because the Koppenberg Cross was crying that they needed to be on November 1st, couldn't go to another day because there was no other date available. Literally yesterday there was not a single race, and for some reason it feels extra long. Just having that one day without cyclocross makes that week feel extra long. Luckily it gave me some time to write the proposal of my master thesis. I finished that this morning, and then I could watch some cyclocross. Issam had the fastest start of the race, but in the second lap Thibaut Nys, the freshly crowned European champion, took over. Lars van der Haar blocked, but it was too early for Nys. 53 minutes alone off the front was simply too big of an ask. He got caught. We had 5 leaders besides the Balwazer Trek Lions duo of Nys and Van der Haar. We also had Niels van der Putten, Laurens Sweeck and Eli Iserbyt. These riders remained up front for a while, but never really pushed through, which allowed Michael van Toerenhout, Gerben Kuipers and Jente Michels to get back into the race. Just after the halfway point of the race, Eli Iserbyt went on the attack, but he crashed in leading position. His derailleur went into crash mode, which put an end to his bid for the victory. His attack did force the decisive moment in the race, because Thibaut Nys and Laurens Sweeck were up the road together. Sweeck put pressure on Nys through the sandpit, but Nys came back and directly dropped Sweeck and went on to take his third victory of the season. Sweeck completely exploded and fell outside of the top 5. We got a battle between Lars van der Haar and the Jeans Man, Niels van der Putten with his teammate Jente Michels fighting for the remaining podium spots. Alpecin got the upper hand in that battle, with van der Putten taking second ahead of Michels, still a U23 on the elite podium here. So Issam, we had a win here for Nijs. I thought it was quite unfortunate that Iserbyt crashed. Of course, it was his own mistake. It was a tricky section where he went down, but we were robbed of a duel because after that the decision was forced quite quickly in the race.
Yeah, it was, and I think we have seen Nijs make a mistake as well. So I think it was a tricky course. It was a mistake on the part of the course where you could make a mistake. We haven't seen it that often there, but it was very well within the possibility. I think it ruined his race, obviously, and from there it was quite difficult, and it was a bit of a shame because I think that he definitely had what it took to at least bring the challenge to Nijs. But Nijs was very good today. He was on it from the start. Wasn't that great, but he was able to pass them quite quickly, put the others under pressure. When he felt after that mistake that he had the knee foul, he kind of understood that it was going to be difficult to break away. Waited for his moment. His moment came, and then pounced on it and made sure that the victory was his. And I think that he, that was a mature ride. It was a very good ride, solid. And when it matters, didn't make that many mistakes and was able to, to clear the rest. And just on Sveik a little bit, because he played a role at the end of the race, or at least was somewhat there. And a good Sveik would definitely have tried to keep it up there and would have been probably on the podium. But I think that we just, we see again a sort of a confirmation that he's not really up there at the moment. And it's going to be interesting if that's going to change over the course of this season, because I think today he got a course that normally should suit him quite well.
I think by now we're at the point of the season where we have a clear division of how the cards are on the table. We know how everybody stacks up against each other. Early on in the season, it's everybody setting into a rhythm, and you have some atypical courses, etc. But now there's been plenty of races, and I think the general lay of the land is that Nijs and Iserbyt are a small step above a big pack of riders, which seems to be getting bigger every single race. We have Van der Putten there. Well, I say race, but I really mean season, because Van der Putten has made the step to that group. Wieseuren has made the step to that group. Wieseuren not here. Michels, we see today, get a podium. That is a very big group of riders, and I do think Sveik is looking decent. He's maybe not exactly where he wants to be, but I do think he looked good. He, however, struggles that his start is not the fastest. Last week in Pontevedra he was chasing all race, which cost him at the end of the race. Today he was also hanging on the back of that leading group, which costs a lot of energy on this course, because with all the rattlesnake sections and left, right, 180, up, down, if you're in fifth wheel, you need to accelerate so much harder because the leader might already have taken the next corner. So I think that cost him at the end, just like last week, he fell back. I do think Sveik is better than he was last season, just again looking for that final bit better. Back to Nijs at the front of the race though, it was a pleasure to see him ride around that Mont Henry section, just like it's a pleasure to see Sveik ride through the sand. Nijs on that off-camber, he took every single line, exploring it like it was a ski slope, trying high line, trying running, trying low line, and ultimately finding the sweet spot of shooting up and then sliding into the rut, putting a foot out. That looked great, and just seeing him launch himself down those hills is also great, and that's really showcasing just the talent he has. I do again want to say that I would have wanted to see him fight Iserbyt on this course, because it's hard to come up with a course that suits Iserbyt more than Lokeren. Maybe tomorrow when we go to Niel, depending on how muddy that wet zone is, that course could arguably be better for him. But these short hills, these tons of twisty corners that are just annoying, that's where Iserbyt excels. But again, one mistake can be costly. Without Iserbyt, there was really no competition for Nijs. We did see the Alpecin de Koning riders take second and third with Van der Putten and Michels. What did you think of their rides, Issam?
Strong, very strong. I think that they got the opportunity to fight for the podium, and they took it with both hands, and were able to get themselves in those positions, and not not lose them, because that's sometimes, especially at the age where they are at the moment, which is right around where you start to get to that end of development in a way. I feel that it's sort of a confirmation of what we saw at the start of the season, and we're basically kind of still somewhat along that start of the season, but it's somewhat getting more serious right now, and I think very good ride from both. I think that Van de Putte on this course is a little better than Michels, and I think that came out beautifully. We saw the difference between the two, and I think that I think for both they can look back on a strong ride. I think that was 100% the maximum. I don't think that anyone was able to match Nice apart from Iserbyt, but that played out as it played out, and I think that for them the podium was a very good result.
Let's look at the entire top 10 then, because I fully agree with you that it was an impressive ride. Jente Michels still just a U23 to take a podium here. Okay, he's a final year U23, but he still needs to do it. It's a good result, especially if you see how he fought back. Behind that podium of Nijs, Van de Putte and Michels, we saw Van der Haar ahead of Iserbyt, Sweeck, Kuipers, Aerts, Ferdinande and Van de Putte. Again, Issam, the start was very important here. I already mentioned the reason for that with Sweeck. We saw that Gerben Kuipers fought his way back up front, then paid the price. Also Van Toerenhout, he was also up front, exploded all the way to 12th. So clearly the blowing up from putting in that effort after a bad start was not limited to only Sweeck.
No, absolutely not. And that's typical for this course, especially if you have a bad start. You really have to compensate with a lot of energy if you want to get back to the front, or you have to hope that the race will sort of calm down a little and that you're able to get to the front with as little energy as possible. But I think for Van Toerenhout, he didn't get the chance there, and you just try to salvage your race and hope for the best and get to the front, and he did that. I think he was caught up in a crash or something at the beginning of the race, and from there had to fight his way back. And it's then easy to overstep it, to overdo it, and fall back again. And I think at a certain point you get so demotivated, especially if you see that some of the riders where you normally should be ahead of are making your life a little bit more difficult. Then I think for Van Toerenhout, he understood what was going on, and couldn't really maintain his position and got his setback again. So it's this course, as we said already, it's very difficult to make the difference, but it's also very difficult to get back to a position after you lost it and you lost some ground. And I think it was all well demonstrated, I have to say, and Sweeck was definitely not the only one that had the issues with that, but I think Sweeck was in a little different position than, for example, Van Toerenhout, because Van Toerenhout really had to make up some ground, and I think that cost a little bit more energy and was also a little bit more reasonable for him, the way he was not able to maintain his position and had his setback.
I think Van Toerenhout really blew his hat off, because after that moment where he got cut off on one of the many ascents of Mount Henry, he just completely vanished. So unless there was a crash or a mechanical we didn't see, I think it was just boom, lights went out. Kind of similar like what happened with Sweeck, because you could see the fallback was there. I think in many ways both of them are in a similar situation. Van Toerenhout is also seeming to lack like that 1 percentage point in his form to really compete, because he should not be finishing behind riders like Victor van de Putte. Aerts finishes 8th and he is with Hens-FSP. This is what I want to make my final point on the men's race about, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, but I wonder what is going on at that team, because it was launched a number of seasons ago in 2019-2020 around Vincent Bastaans, who was a privateer. They got Lokes in, they got Meuse in, and then they started to say, okay, we slowly want to grow, we're going to invest in talent in combination with some experience. But what is really the state of that team now? Because they were highly ambitious. They wanted to be a cyclocross professional team. They are a cyclocross professional team. They are only one of, I think, 3 teams that have that status, next to, for sure, Paul Sauze and I think Baloise Trek. I don't think Crelan Corendon has that status. But they only have 5 cyclocross riders. They have Toon Aerts, who is clearly their big man there, but the rest of it doesn't make too much sense to me, because for a team with such big ambitions, why do you only have 5 riders? Why don't you extend Anton Ferdinand? He was literally one of your best riders last year. He needed to cut his season short after some issues in the Christmas period, but he was a good rider, and you see today he races as a privateer now, he finishes 9th. I don't really understand. My leading theory, backed by some media reports, is that they just went too big on Toon Aerts. They offered him a big contract, which they couldn't afford. They hoped that a new sponsor would step in, but they were unable to attract a new sponsor able of covering that. Yes, they got FSP in, but clearly it wasn't enough. Ferdinand didn't get extended. They didn't have any issues with letting Dan Soete go early. He still had a contract. They are throwing shade at Meka Baka, a minor. They're commenting, I hope you fail at every aspect of your life, on a post of a 17-year-old on Instagram because they had a contractual dispute. They're giving comments to the media and leaking one-sided stories of the media to smear her name. In media interviews, they say about that Instagram comment, I haven't read it, but I can understand that my dad is emotional. It's normal seeing the circumstances. Then once there's a bit of backlash, the journalist apparently owes them one or something because they delete the comment, the article gets taken down, and their new article is released with a one-sided story from their side. I don't really know what's going on there, but also considering the results of Aerts, the team is clearly not in a great place.
No, it's not in a great place, and I don't think that I will make more sense of it than you will. Weird situation where they're in, because they had this somewhat big transfer with Toon Aerts, in which we thought that there's definitely some possibility in terms of the gains that you can get from a rider like of that caliber. They probably focused a little bit too much on that transfer and forgot that they also have a team to manage and a team to maintain and sustain. And I think something went wrong along somewhere in that area in terms of focusing too much on one rider, focusing too much on the success that one rider could bring, and kind of forgetting on the ambitions that they really have and thinking too big. And it's something that you sometimes see in sports in general, but also in cyclocross and cycling, and especially in the Belgium environment. But you see it on a it's not only there where you see these type of circumstances happening and events going on. And I think that's it's not a great situation, not a great look for sure, especially on the way they conducted themselves with the whole saga there. And well, we have to wait and see what the future will hold for that team, and hopefully they can get themselves out of it and make a better name for themselves. But at the moment, it doesn't really look great.
Then let's move to the women's race. No World European champion Fem van Empel. She is taking a bit of rest, which is the wrong word because she's actually training. She's training. That's what she's doing. We had a very fast start, as we've seen many times already this season, for Sara Casasola. Brandt again had a slightly worse start. She was in 9th position, quickly moved her way through the field. At the barriers in the first lap, Alvarado dropped her chain, and that was the sign for Brandt to seize the opportunity, lead the leading group, and with a very long attack, she eventually broke away. Alvarado went from rider to rider, moved forward, came as close as 12 seconds, but then she had to give up her fight. Brandt could go on and take victory. Alvarado managed to drop Casasola at the end of the race to take second. Then the Italian champion was in third. It was very unfortunate, just like in the men's race with Iserbyt, that one of the favorites here had an issue. I would say for Alvarado it was something she could do less about than for Iserbyt. But she was the only rider that could have put up a fight with Brandt, and I think it would have been a good one. But unfortunately, it was a walkover victory for Brandt in the end.
Yeah, it was. I personally think that Alvarado would going to be a little bit more difficult for Iserbyt to beat Nice, but I felt that with Alvarado, we definitely had a bigger chance of her beating Brandt. But we never got to see that, and that's cyclocross at the end of it. And it was a bit of a shame to have that situation, but you kind of knew already when Alvarado had that issue, it looked really like Brandt was probably going to be not cruising to victory, but she's not going to get a lot of contests from the riders around her, because we have already seen the capabilities of the other competitors, and it was clear, and it played out as it played out. And I think that in the end, Brandt finished it off perfectly. Sometimes there were some Brandt moments, as we can call it in a way. Some moments that were you're holding your breath a little bit, and you hope that she manages to get through the situation, because it was some hairy moments, some unclipping, and it wasn't all that great at times, but she managed to get through, and she managed to have enough of a gap to get the victory. And I think that in the end it was a great ride from her side, and sometimes you need a little bit of luck to make it happen, and I think she definitely deserved the luck and did a good job.
I really don't have too much to say about these results. It's really a continuation of what we have seen so far this season. As I said earlier, we're in this phase where for now the running order is quite clear, especially on the women's side. It's waiting for more and more names to pop in, for the fields to become deeper, but we've seen it this season. Brandt, Alvarado and Van Empel are a cut above the rest, and that is also very much the case, which we saw today. Brandt and Alvarado were a cut above the rest, and the rest, just like in the other races, has been Casasola ahead of Verdonschot. 5th place went to Annemarie Worst. I would be curious to hear your thoughts. I gave mine in the Koppenberg Cross last week. Worst came back from a COVID infection. We spoke a bit last season that she might need a change of environment. She's training with Niels Albert now. I would say her season start looks decent, but she's still lacking a bit of volume, considering the fact that she is always struggling so far at the end of the race.
Yeah, I agree with you. Volume is not the worst. It's something that you can fix. So it's not a big problem, but it shouldn't be a continuation of what we kind of saw last season. But it's in a way it's somewhat encouraging, I have to say. I think the last part of this, here at Lokeren was not great. The setback was a bit too much. I see some positives, I have to say, and I don't know if that will, if it will come out eventually. That's for the future to decide. But I think that definitely, change of environment could work out quite positively, and I think that there is the potential for sure, and I think that if she can fix that, somewhat what is at the moment her biggest issue, the setback at the end of the race, sort of the fall off, if she can fix that, I still think that she is a rider that is capable of fighting for top fives and podiums if the field is more to her liking and a little bit less dense. But we have to wait and see for that. I feel that there is the possibility for her to come back and become the rider that she was once before. But that's gonna be a difficult. It's gonna be a difficult trajectory, and it's gonna be something where you have to work very hard for, and we have to wait and see how that will play out.
Let's look at the entire top 10. Brandt took the win on a very successful day for the Baloise Track Lions. They won all 4 races, with Haverdings winning the Men U23 race and Arthur van der Boer winning the Men Junior race. Unfortunately, there was no junior women's race here, which it's really time that Belgian races do, but next year they will hopefully be forced to do so, because there is a fine if you don't organize one. Alvarado was second, ahead of Casasola, Verdonschot and Worst. We see that Ribeirol is setting more into her own now. The course would suit her better. She finished 6th, ahead of Backstedt, Betsema, Bakker and Moors. One rider I would like to talk about, and that is Zoe Backstedt. She started her season here. She's focusing on the World Cups. It's her first race. She was a bit rusty, and quite frankly, this is also a very bad course for Backstedt. It's too technical. So I would say, everything considered, a decent season start for her.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't think it's not really a course where she can excel in, and I think despite that she did a good job and was able to somewhat negotiate the course that was presented. I don't know exactly how her preparation was towards the start of the season, but I think that she will definitely grow the longer the season goes, and it's a good place to start at. I think that for her it's just a question of getting better every race and improve. And we will see where that will end up, I guess. I think that is, for me at least, I'm going to be quite interested in how close will she get to the front of the elites. Will she be able to fight for podiums and for a race win? I think that will be interesting to see. But for now, it's a good start, and she just have to get better and better. That's what she has to do now.
It should improve with the week, and I am curious to see how this approach to the season plays out for her. It's a bit different than last year. She is being supported by Geert Wellens, which I think is a great addition. They have somebody who can actually nurture her a bit more, give her a bit more insights. I felt like that was missing last year when she was really just the only rider racing for Canyon SRAM. There was a lot of racing this weekend. Let's look at some of the results. A very, very hard race on the Vanberg, the first edition of that race, well, we had the European Championships there, but this is organized by a different organization. Arne Baars won the men's race ahead of Danny van Lierop and Keije Sole. Really, really rough course. The women elite race was won by Jamie de Beer, ahead of Larissa Hartog and Xaide van Sinai. There was the second weekend of the Coupe de France in Pierrick with the third and fourth round. Timothy Gabriel won ahead of David Menu and Joshua Dubois on the first day. On the second day, David Menu won ahead of Rémi Lelandais and Timothy Gabriel. The women's races, they were won by Amandine Foucounet on the first day ahead of Noémie Garnier and Amandine Muller. But on the second day, Célia Géry beat Amandine Foucounet and Amandine Vidon. Interesting results there. Issam, you weren't there last week, so I would still like to have your thoughts on Célia Géry.
Well, I think that I said something along the lines that for Schreiber it was going to be a walk in the park, and only bad luck would probably cause her to lose out on the competition. But Géry proved me wrong at least, and I think that it was a great display. Was able to pull it off, and I think that the signs that we had from her start of the season, where we saw that she was able to get in the mix from time to time with the elites in the French scene, and she was able to put some decent results out. I think that the growth is there, and it's not a surprising thing. The potential is there. She already is a junior world champion. On the road, she showed us that she has the potential. It's a talent. It's a big talent, and it's someone that could become a big cyclist within the women category. And yeah, it's interesting to see and interesting to follow. And I think if she can continue the growth that she started, could already be a great season for her already, and who knows what is still up for her. I think it's great to see, to be honest, that she's able to continue the growth, and we'll see where it ends up.
There was also racing in Switzerland in Hitnau. The fourth and penultimate round of the Swiss Cyclocross Cup took place with Loris Roulier edging out a victory over Dario Lillo and Nicolas Bart. Elisabeth Brandau won the women's race in more comfortable fashion ahead of Rebecca Esterman and Marlène Petit-Girard. There was racing in Carranza in Spain, that is. Kevin Suarez Fernandez took an easy win ahead of Miguel Rodriguez Novoa. Mario San Milan ended third. The women's race, also no surprises. If you listen to this section every week, you will know Lucia González Blanco usually wins these races, and that was no different. Sofia Rodriguez Revere ended second ahead of Sara Cueto Vega. There was racing in Turin in Italy, where Gioele Bertolini took the win ahead of Samuele Scappini and Christian Colminelli. Carlotta Borello won the women's race ahead of Rebecca Garibaldi and good old Eva Lechner. There was also racing in Eastern Europe. There was 2 days of racing in Slovakia. Victoria Gladonova took the win on both days of racing in Topolsiansky, which I definitely mispronounced. On the first day of racing, she got the upper hand over Lucy Grohova and Eliska Drobolova, and that is really a horrendous name to pronounce for me. On the second day, she got the upper hand over Lucy Grohova and Barbora Bukowska. The men's races there, they were won by Marek Konwa, on the first day, Matej Ulik won ahead of Patrick Lienert and Ondrej Zeleny. On Sunday, the race was won by Marek Konwa ahead of Matthias Fiala and Patrick Lienert. I did see Konwa in another result this weekend, and that was in Pilsen, that was in the Czech Republic. That race was on Saturday with Michal Boros winning ahead of Hannes Degenkolb and Václav Jezek. The women's results there were Barbora Bukowska, the junior, winning ahead of Barbora Yerbakova and Teresa Vanikova. I think that's all the racing in Eastern Europe. You will be wrong, because there was really a lot of racing there. There was also the Hungarian races taking place in Debrecen. Barnabas Vos took the win there on both days, while the women's races there were won by Regina Brugner. And there was also the Romanian C1 race, where Takat Zombor and Lucels took the wins. Then, finally, Issam, where at the end there was also the Norwegian Championship Cyclocross and the Lithuanian Championship Cyclocross. The Lithuanian results are currently not yet in, but the Norwegian results are in. This year, no riders from Uno X taking the title. We had Tubas Mats Glende taking the men's title, and the women's title went to Oda Laforce, who beat me, Björndal Ottestad, the champion of the last few years. Then I forgot one result, and that was in Rukve. That was actually a quite decent start list there, with Felipe Orts taking the win, which was quite wonderful to see. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think that that transfer from wherever he was to Ridley Racing Team, I think that is quite a. I think that changed maybe a little bit of his the idea of racing and maybe his approach in a way, and he also is he's maturing, and not in the sense of age, but I think in terms of racing he's getting more and more familiar with the racing scene, and he is. Also, I think also a little bit tactically, he's a little bit more daring, knows a little bit more how the racing goes, the rhythm of it, and I think that he's using that right now, that experience that he has, and at the end of it, you also just need to have good legs, and when you have that combination is something a lot of riders dream of, and I think that he at the moment is in such a phase, and it's great to see that he's able to pull it off in Rukve and able to take the win there, and I think he himself was quite happy with that as well, and I think that's just great to see.
Rukve is a great course for Ort, super technical, a lot of cornering, the Ferris wheel there, the pinwheel. It's great for him there, and the start field wasn't the deepest, but I agree with the other points you made. He got the upper hand over Ryan Kamp and Jens Adams, whereas in the women's race, Verdonschot beat Bentveld and Van Alphen. Issam will be back tomorrow, racing on Monday. We'll be covering the Super Prestige in Niel. Thank you so much for being back.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and hopefully I will be there again tomorrow.
Fingers crossed, we'll hopefully have some interesting racing in Niel. As always, there should be some mud. Thanks for listening, and we will be back tomorrow. Goodbye.